because, you know, a lot of times you hear in the community when it comes down to going out and spending our little few dollars with for things that we can buy from each other, we seem to like to, hey, well, I can go over here and get it for 50 cents cheaper instead of spending it with our own. And see, we don't realize the more we help spend our money with our own, we can help that African American bring his prices down to be a little more competitive, because we have to buy at a higher price anyway, because we are consumers in general, you see.
Right.
So I can see your point.
And that's why I emphasize on the word that we take responsibility. I'm not saying that, I'm trying not to say let's spend money with our own. I'm saying that we should take our own responsibility, that we should be equal citizens. And to do that, we have to keep our dollars like everybody else keep their dollars. You know, to me, I don't understand this. You know, did you do the same thing? Jewish people, they keep their money, they're good at it. They expert keeping their money with their own community. Nobody ever said they're racist.
Yeah,
you know, nobody ever said the Koreans doing it. Then the Japanese, Japan right now is very good in it. They only believe in whatever the Japanese make. That's what they support. I never heard not one comment saying Japanese people are racist. That's not a racist idea. Even they are praised for and commended for their efforts. But when we do it, it just come across a little bit different. You know, when we say, well, we should do that, I'm saying that we should take our own responsibility and keeping our dollars in our community and get those benefits and make sure that those benefits support our efforts and support our community. That's not anybody else's job. That's our way. If that's our community, we should take and shoulder the responsibility of that community.
As I said earlier, we're talking with Karim Abdullah Muhammad, who is a businessman here in the local Atlanta area. And we'd like to let our audience know that this is a live program, and you're free to call in and you can ask questions or voice your concerns about this issue of how our money is spent in our local community. And I think it is a timely subject, and it's something that we in our community need to start considering, because if we're going to grow in the future, in the 90s and the new decade that's coming in, we're going to have to be wide awake and alert to what's going on within our own community. When we go back and we talk about the organization that you have established, which is a community watch or a business watch, I mean, what part does this type of an organization play in looking at the situation that's going on in the African American community?
The other part, which is said business watch, it means that we should be aware of businesses. Sometimes that we think all businesses in our community are good business, but that's not the case. And especially like with the case of the Koreans, they come in, they undercut our market, they have took over the beauty supply business, but at the same time, they're wiping out the African-American economic base. They're wiping out the African-American businesses. They're wiping out from all levels. Here, I've watched them from Los Angeles all the way to Dallas, to Newark, to New York and Harlem. Everywhere they go, they wipe the African-American business totally out. Wherever they come, the business don't exist. They take over the wholesale market, they take over the retail market, they take over the toll market, and they don't leave any business there. So I'm saying the community need to be aware of those efforts and should do some selective buying or boycott those businesses that is doing that type of practicing.
Well, I noticed too, you know, sometimes when you talk about these kinds of businesses that's in our community, sometimes we'll find that their treatment, really, their attitudes sometimes are they're not very pleasant at times, you know. Especially, you know, to me, when you're talking about giving your money to somebody, and I remember Imam Warthi Muhammad saying something relating to that. He said, you know, you should really be concerned. You shouldn't let somebody mistreat you and you're going to give them your money.
Right.
So, you know, these are concerns that I think that all of us have to be able to look at as well. Now, when we go back, and I was making a point earlier about the fact that we are such consumers, can we blame people for setting up in our community? If, you know, the reason why I'm saying that now, if I was a foreigner and I was looking over here in America and I say, well, if I wanted to get rich, let me go set up in the African-American community.
Right.
Because I'm guaranteed to get rich. All I got to do is set the store up. Because, you know, you hear these little jokes that are made. If there was a African-American business here and a non-African-American business here and they both sold ice, that we would go to the other person and get the ice because their ice is colder. You know, we make these kind of jokes with each other, but it's a very, very serious kind of concern that we have. We think it's a joke, but it's a real. It shows where we are thinking, how we are thinking as an ethnic group. When I think, to me, about how are we going to turn this thing around, the only thing I can see that we can do is try to prick the conscience of our community,
right,
to let them see that there is, as you put it earlier, a responsibility that we have to each other. I don't care if it costs you a few pennies more. We should try to get rid of this old slavery idea in us of that crab in a barrel and not wanting to see each other succeed, because any African-American success is my success.
right.
And we have to begin to push each other up instead of pulling each other down like crabs and saying that we don't want to see another advance. And these are the kind of things that I think that is more important right now for us to really talk to the community when we have the opportunity to let them know that we have that kind of concern.
Right. Also, dealing with foreigners coming in, we need to also be very conscious that just because it's business, sometimes businesses act like a vacuum cleaner. They comes in, it is better for the building to stay vacant than to get somebody that is just going to draw all your funds or draw all that money out and take it somewhere else. Mm-hmm. Because if you have we were spending $300 billion in our community, just say in the United States, we're spending $300 billion, but if somebody come with a vacuum cleaner and take that out, then that community, that money can't even circle. So sometimes when we have foreigners come in, they come in, the money do not even be in the circle. Matter of fact, they don't even employ. The employment level, even with them, is very low. With other business, you come in, you see the employment there, but even with their business, is very low. So I'm saying they can't be blamed for coming in and looking at this effort and taking the opportunity. Nor can they blame us for the opportunity if we choose to boycott or if we choose not to go to their businesses.
Of course.
Because we have to do what's in our best interest, and they have to do what's in their best interest. And, sometimes I hear thoughts where people are saying that, well, we are just jealous. The Koreans, they're coming in, and the black people wasn't doing nothing, the African Americans wasn't doing nothing with the business. So the Koreans come in, and they have established business, and they just jealous of the businesses. And we need to understand that what we justify. Because it's the same thing when the Europeans used to colonialize in Africa. They justify that because the Africans wasn't doing anything. Yeah. And they justify, there's a superior to go over the inferior. And once you start justifying that, then you justify maybe more people to come in our community and take over because we're not doing anything. I think that African Americans have to progress at its rate. And I think they have to be let alone to progress at this rate and take care of their concerns. That don't mean for somebody else to come in and say, well, they're not doing it, so let me come in there and do it, and let me take the few dollars that they get and let us go and develop our community. But I'm saying that our community have to be very conscious aware where they spend our dollars. In the average one of us, we are just, this is America, the land of the free enterprise system, and we just spend our dollars just openly. We don't think, we just go and spend our dollars just openly,
Let's go to our phones in and see what our callers have to say. We'd like to thank you for calling, and you're on the air.
Yes, you had made a statement, and I was curious. You said that all of our, we were very well educated. We have very good positions as far as in government and et cetera. And we still have the problem where we do not spend money with ourselves, and I'm trying to find out and asking what is the reason? Is our education system, is it properly preparing us to go out and be entrepreneurs and take on this responsibility? Is the education system at fault, and are they still promoting us to continue to get a job? Or what is? I'm trying to understand the problem, and how come we're not doing it even though we have the knowledge that we should?
Okay, we'd like to thank you for calling. We'd like to direct our question to our guest.
Okay, the education system, for my point, and a lot of our point of view, it's a miseducation system, especially when it comes to African Americans' education. To go through right now through most of the public schools, you only have 1 month of African American history. And all the other months, they have been trained to praise other ethnic groups, their accomplishment. But we have 1 month for our own accomplishment. So they don't get a chance to see themselves. You have to be able to see your contribution and what you're doing, and not just only slavery contributions or our history in America. Most of our history is the history of breaking away. We got free. You know, this woman got us free. This man got us free. There's a history of breaking free, not too much history of what we've done or the contribution that have been made by us. And we really need to look in that. But it is true that the fact that we have a miseducation system, and we need to address that system also, because African Americans, when they come out, even though they're educated, they got PhDs, the majority of them, they still go in and they talk about a job, how I can work. And I've looked on TV, and a lot of them PhD, they were starving. Here you got a master, here you got a PhD, and when the job is gone, you starve. And I'm saying with that type of knowledge, a person is supposed to be some type of creativity, that he's supposed to have some type of knowledge to be able to go out there and make a living for himself and make a living for his family.
I think it was W.E.B. Du Bois that made a statement that related to the measure. He said that the measure of the progress of the African Americans is in direct proportion to the extent that we're willing to go to teach our people independent thinking. And that's a problem. We don't have an independent mind. We don't have the minds to say that I can do what other people can do. I don't have to go and ask people for jobs. I can produce a job. We don't have that kind of mind. It wasn't in our training. And if you go back even as far as slavery, you'll see that that was kind of left out. You know, let's go back to our phones and see what our caller has to say. We'd like to thank you again for calling, and you're on the air. Okay, I'm sorry. We must have lost a call. Please call back if you have the mind to do so. But getting back to that point of this independent thinking, you find that it's missing in us on all levels of our existence. We don't seem to have people that just are entrepreneurs in spirit. You know, there's a few, and those few seem to come from the grassroots, basically. You see, on the educated classes, all we're interested in is being in the big positions where we're receiving good salaries. But I think our callers came back, so we'll go back to our phones. Thank you for calling, and you're on the air. Hello? I'm sorry, I can't hear you. You're on the air.
Hello?
Yes, you're on the air.
Oh, I'm on the air.
Yes, sir.
Okay, listen. You're talking about an independent mind.
Yes, sir.
You know, it's all about money.
Uh-huh.
This thing is all about money. And what happened is, once we, you made a suggestion to the effect that we should be independent. Well, we're independent when we go to the next guy, next door, and because what happened is his ice is 3 cents less than this guy. Why can't this guy buy the ice and sell the ice for the same guy that the Korean or the other guys are selling it for? Why does he always have to sell his ice higher?
Okay.
I mean, money is money.
Okay.
I mean, the black guy should be able to compete with everyone else. There is no reason why he shouldn't.
Okay, I respect your question, and I'd like to direct it to our businessman here, and we'd like to thank you for calling. We hope you continue to watch. Would you like to address that?
Right, I would like to address that. I can understand the caller concern, but in all cases, that's just not true. See, I'm saying that we have stores right now. We have stores that are high. We have a lot of clothing stores that we know, the big name stores. They're high. African Americans go there. I mean, when we talk about price, then we can have the African American go to the same, probably a Paramount that they go to. And when they come down, and I know for a fact, because one time I had 4 clothing stores in Dallas, and the designer jean, Calvin Klein, when they came in, they said my Calvin Klein wasn't real. I went there, you got all the other big name stores shopping right there with me at their Paramount. But when they came, we put our jeans lower, and because we put our jeans lower at a lower price, which we had to sell it, because the majority of the time when they came into the African American business, they come in there with discount mind. Now there are some businesses, there are some African American businesses just higher, but we have to understand. That's what I'm saying. We are not conscious to economics, not in its whole circle. Just like the Japanese, they didn't say it because America when they dropped the bomb on Hiroshima, that, oh, America is much cheaper, let us go and buy from America. They didn't do that. They said that, look, what we got to do, whatever Japan made, that's what we must support. We must support whatever, because that's the only way that we can build Japan up. So America had cheaper prices, they still didn't buy. America had better quality merchandise, they still didn't buy. They kept going till they reached the point of quality. And what I do in answer callers like that, what I say, what we have to understand is this, is that because the neighbor house is cheaper, but it's better, I don't go and pay rent on his house. I still have to pay the rent on my own house. If his rent is less, I go give him $10. That's $10 going out to the neighbor. When I pay $13 rent on my own house, then the $13 is coming to me. The $13 that is going to African-American business is going for African-American concern. The $10 that is going to this guy or going out of the community is going for his concern. So you're looking at $13 coming in our community, and you're looking at $10 that's never going to benefit again. We must understand when we say money turned over 10 times or money turned over 5 times, we are talking about $300 billion. If it turned over 5 times, that's 15 or whatever, that's 15 times whatever that number is. Okay. But my point is that money begin to circulate. If it's 10 times, if it's $100 billion, we know that we're talking about that's 10 times, that money be multiplied 10 times, that's the value. So I'm saying the money that stays in our community, as long as it stays in our community, it develops us. But if we go and everything that we do is by price, everything that we shop at is by price. Now I can understand that. Some of us, we're consumers, and the first thing we look at. But I'm saying the long run. The short run, the $10 is better. But look in our community, and we'll see that the short run haven't worked. We see our community is suffering from going at the short run. But if we look at the long run, then we'll see the benefits of the long run when we give our money to Bill Cosby is a good example. He made a lot of money, but we saw that money trickle down, went to African-American colleges, went to some African-American business people. The money trickled down. The money went down. It benefited more. And if we would take $300 billion and give that $300 billion and let that $300 billion stay in African-American community, we would see the benefits of the change. We have to understand this. If we're going to be fair, if our mind is really to being fair, and what gets me, it looks like we can be fair to everybody, but it's hard for us to be fair with our own. If we're going to be fair, and if I was an outsider, say if I wasn't African American and I was coming to this country, for me to be fair, I would have to say, well, look, this man had maybe 400 years of free slavery to establish a low price. This guy had so much to establish that kind of concept. So he had that. Let me see that he get 400 years free labor, and then see what kind of price can he go down to after you didn't build the whole nation on that kind of stuff.
That's a good, very good point. I think that those are the kind of concerns that we as a people have to look at and not get hung up on the emotional aspect of what's going on and see what we're going to do to strategize a change in our community. Let's go back to our phones and see what our callers have to say. Thank you for calling. You're on the air.
Yes. You know what? The reason why we really can't participate in buying is because as a black, we don't really stick together. And not only that, when we go to the merchandise mart, we have to compete with prices. And therefore, we cannot, as a person, go there and buy in volume. That's why we really don't get the prices that we really want in the stores. We can't buy in volume.
Okay, let's see. We have a businessman here, and she's saying that buying in volume is very difficult for African-American business people.
Okay.
We'd like to thank you for calling.
In some cases, but you know what I find out? My problem with it, I understand the caller, and there are some reasons, but what I have looked when I went in the neighborhood is this. I see African-Americans, I see they have fine clothes. I'll go to stores downtown, if we had a call named Bloomingdale, we'll go to Macy's, and they have the same clothes. Now, in the African-American shop, they are cheaper, but the store don't have the name to fit it. So therefore, they say, I'm not going in here and pay him no $200 for the dress, but at the same time, they will go to a Macy's or a Bloomingdale and have the same dress and have no problem with it. And they'll pay the price. So a lot of things I'm saying that because it is in the African-American community and the African-American may haven't put that much money in advertisement to boost the store up, to boost the image up, but he have the same quality. They go to Paramount, they have their goods there. But when we come in there, our mind said, I've heard people told me, say, oh, shoot, I can go downtown. We'll just say, just for instance, that jeans at $30. And they'll say, well, shoot, they downtown in Macy's for $32, so I'll go down there and get them. Now, whatever sense that make, I don't understand that. But they just feel like they're getting a better quality, even though it's the same name, same brand name jeans. We have to understand that really we have a problem. And let me tell you this, we can sit up here and we can justify economic suicide all we want. Yeah. And we can keep financing oppression because that's what we're doing. We are actually financing to be oppressed. And as long as, just like we got the Koreans over here, he's cheaper. So it's cheaper for me to give $10 to be oppressed. So we're going to keep going until we just study being oppressed, and that's not going to help the situation out at all. And we have to stop creating that's insanity.
Well, just like the caller who called earlier was saying, well, it's about money. It's about money, you see. Yeah, but if the money is not in our possession, that's oppression on us.
Right.
You see, and so we have to wake up to that. That's a very, very valid point. And I think that our callers need to really look and see what it is that we can do to help each other grow in our community and get out of this mind that has been produced by the experiences that we've shared in this community, in this country anyway. Thank you for calling. You're on the air.
Yes, I'm an aspiring entrepreneur.
Yes, sir.
And I'd like to know, what can we do as a nation of people to overcome this way of thinking? What can we do to get the people to understand that we can go into business for ourselves and we can do well and we don't have to depend on other people? What can we do? Can we do things through education? How can we reach the masses of the people?
Right.
Okay, well, we'd like to thank you for calling, and I hope you continue to watch, please.
Okay. I would like to say he hit on the point, and the point is education, and it's going to take a massive education. We must realize we was 400 years in slavery. We only been out 100 years, and the effects of slavery haven't been addressed yet.
That's true.
They just said, they told us a bunch of lies. They told us we was inferior. They told us everything about us. They told us all these crazy ideas about us. And then, when we was let go, they just left it. Nobody said they were lying. Nobody said anything else. They just left it like that. So they left problems. So here we have problems perpetuating hundreds of years. Just study problems. That's what's echoing. The dollar, blacks are African American goods are inferior. It's just problems. All those things are nothing but the echoes from the effects of slavery. Because what we need to do, and the responsibility that we have to do, we have to support each other to get better. The only way, what we're saying this is everybody else has started. And we remember a lot of people when the Jews came in our community, they didn't start with everything. They was on the corners. They may have a little store. They started there. Nobody came into the community with everything. Nobody came in the community with top quality goods. Right now, we have in our neighborhood right now hot stores that's not owned by African Americans. Some of them, we got grocery stores right in our community now owned by Koreans, and we pack them. So I'm saying, so why are we going there? If it's all about price, why are we shopping right there at the store and we giving them all our dollars? It's the same argument anyway.
Yeah.
So I'm saying the mind can justify what it wants, but we shouldn't justify financial oppression or economic slavery, which we're practicing.
And I think, too, that it's very, very important, at least with brothers like the gentleman that just called on our phone, is that when we do go out into community, we have to talk it out. We got to talk positively about the fact that we need to increase our understanding and our spirit to help support each other.